Hello and welcome everyone to Beyond the Lights, Football Across Texas, where we're talking football in towns with head coaches across the state. I'm your host, Brandon Brown, retired football coach and AD, and I'm glad you could join us today at this week's stop in the Lone Star State as we meet one more coach and one more town that make up the world of Texas high school football. Hello, and thank you for joining us for episode 3 of Beyond the Lights, Football Across Texas. I'm joined by my co-host, Doug Shanafelt again, and we are at Scurry Rosser High School today. Scurry Rosser is a 3A Division II school located on the edge of Scurry, about 35 miles southeast of Dallas, but it's actually made up of two towns, Scurry and Rosser. We're here visiting with head football coach and AD, John David Caffey. Coach Caffey, it's great to see you again.
Glad to get to see you.
And we got several questions we're going to ask you today, kind of pick your brain on some stuff. See if we can get a little more insight into Texas high school football from your standpoint. So could you start just by telling us a little about yourself, a little background on what brought you to Scurry Rosser?
Yeah, no doubt. Well, my whole family is a family of educators. My mom and dad were both, dad was 45 years in with 30 years as an AD, and mom had 28 before she retired, taught every grade but kindergarten. Being a coach's wife, you take the job that's open.
That's true.
They had an incredible impact on their students and athletes' lives, and it's kind of what we joke. My older brother's been an AD and head football coach, and our baby sister, she's a head girls basketball coach and girls coordinator. It's just what we call the family business.
Now, Jeff is your brother, right?
Yep.
And where is he a head coach right now?
Well, he's actually a defensive coordinator now at Big Spring.
Big Spring,
Yep.
Okay. I knew he was in West Texas somewhere. I couldn't remember where.
Yeah, it's my sister's at McCamey. She's a girls coordinator, head girls basketball coach out there. When you grow up in West Texas, you used to get a little sand in your teeth and you kind of miss it. So it's kind of one of those things, just drew them back out there.
I gotcha.
Scurry Rosser, though, was a great opportunity for me. Was in San Antonio area at a 2A school for 7 years. We did a lot of great things there. But as my family parents retired to Abilene, I knew I would like to have a opportunity to be a little closer to them, and this cut that trip down in half. And also, it's a great school, great education. Opportunities for my 3 sons was tremendous. So it's been a fantastic move for us so far.
Okay, now you've got 3 boys. Oldest one is junior high right now?
He's a 6th grader.
6th grade,
yeah,
okay.
We got a 6th grader, a 5th grader, and a 3rd grader. So we're blessed. There'll be a senior, a junior, and a freshman. So one day, hopefully, they'll run out on the field together one day.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Now see, for the listeners, Coach Caffey and I had an interesting story on how we met. We met at a subway station, a subway restaurant in a gas station in Hawley, Texas, going to interview for a job up there several years back. And we meet in there, and then another coach walks in, and we find out that we're on 10-minute interviews for an AD job. So if anybody's listening from Hawley, make sure your current people in charge know that 10 minutes is a little short for an AD head football interview. So needless to say, I think I met 4 other coaches in the waiting room there for that. And anyway, Coach Caffey and I met then, and then both of us wound up being in South Texas right after that. He was at Rice. I was at Schulenburg. We ran into each other there, and we just kind of gotten to know each other since. But good man and good family. So glad things are going good for you, Coach. Now, tell me, coming to Scurry Rosser, I've never coached in a school that is from split communities where they join up. Are there any challenges that coaching in a split community like that brings?
This is actually my 3rd time. My father was a head coach at Spring Lake Earth, and I was his offense coordinator his last year there. So my first head job actually was at Spring Lake Earth. So Spring Lake being the small town of it, Earth being the bigger. Then you go to Rice Consolidated, which actually is 4 towns. And then you come up to Scurry Rosser, and of course Scurry's the big town and Rosser's the small. So in the smaller setting, there really hasn't been that big of a drop off. Here at Scurry, they have a fantastic following. There is no community splitness. There is no, at Rice Consolidated, there were times where we'd just have the parents because the school was out kind of in the midpoint. So that was a struggle to bring people to games.
Well, that's what we were wondering specifically about practices getting kicked. Because I know at Rice, I do remember y'all had to bus kids home
everywhere, and we were lucky when we'd have a coach live in Sheridan. I lived in Garwood. Some coaches lived in Eagle Lake, and we'd run the bus routes home after practice at Rice, and that was very difficult. because it was so spread out. Here at Scurry Rosser, it's not that far away from each other, and our community support is so strong. We don't really have the same struggles, but it is kind of funny when sometimes when you make sure with logos and decals that one isn't prominent over the other sometimes, and there's some little things that some of the towns you're like, hey, we're the back seat kind of this, so that there's not really, it's kind of more of a tongue in cheek and joking manner, but for the most part, at Spring Lake Earth and Scurry Rosser, the school was the community, and that's kind of how they approach it here. They have a great following. It doesn't matter if we're going to just play tiddlywinks in the parking lot. Somebody's going to show up. That's what's kind of neat about this place above most others. So our struggles here, not much, but there are towns that are kind of the consolidated school districts where sometimes it is hard for everybody to get behind what you're trying to do because they're just not there. There is not a community support there.
Now, you had mentioned that, coming from a coaching family, did you ever want to do anything else?
I was drawing up plays. My mom was getting her master's at Tarleton State for a short time, and she had to take me to class, and I'm drawing up a play for Copper's Cove to beat Odessa Permian when I was in the second grade. So I'd say, Dad, this is the one that's going to work. And so, I mean, they were the top dogs of 5A football back then. But it's just something. Mom and Dad had such a positive impact on their students and athletes' lives. I knew at an early age I wanted to help people, and I knew that the impact that my parents had, I knew I wanted to follow in their footsteps. And it probably speaks a little more to who my mom and dad are because all of their kids got into it. But honestly, I had a friend in high school who said, John, you're too smart to be a coach. You need to go be a doctor or a lawyer. And I said, there's nothing else I want to do, nothing else that I can make a positive impact on people's lives in the same manner, and there's nothing else that I ever wanted to do. So no, coaching was always in the plan. I wanted to be a college coach since I saw Rodney Peete and Troy Aikman in '88, USC, UCLA. Keith Jackson was on the call, and I'd made up my mind I was going to coach college football, and I had that opportunity for 4 years. It was incredible. But God had a different plan for me. Let me do it and fulfill that dream and goal. But I knew after that last year at Millsaps College that God was going to make me hopefully a positive impact on a lot of young people's lives in high school setting.
Well, it's funny you said that because my oldest son coaches at Salado right now. It's his first coaching job. But he wanted to go do college ball too. And then after being there as a grad assistant at Hardin Simmons, which for a great staff, learned a lot from them, good people, good men. But after, just a year of that, first year, he was like, Dad, I want to be high school. He goes, it's just different. He said, no, I miss it. I want to be a part of it. So he finished out his last year as a GA and immediately jumped into high school. So there's just something about, high school football. And like you said, that mentorship, that comes with it.
Coach, just question I always like to ask is like your foundation as a coach, which you want to, get to your kids. I've got an example here. You mentioned God a while ago. I told my kids, my mind's based on God. I want to be godly. That's the number one thing. And, some people may be disciplined. I like building relationships, which I think that ties together. What are yours? What is your foundation for coaching?
That's the other thing with the example of my father being in that role. My first job was actually being a kid that wanted to coach. I always wanted to coach for my dad. First job right out of college was I had that opportunity. Dad had left the public school setting and started at Westbury Christian School. And my first job was his defensive coordinator, and I was the head track coach for boys and girls. We had a reunion this summer where we had all of Dad's former assistants come together. The people that were there the most, and we started coaching together in 2003, 2004, and 2005, were those folks at Westbury Christian. And one of the guys who's the principal at Marble Falls High School named Patrick Henson, he was an assistant basketball coach at that time, said, it was so rewarding. We didn't make any money, but we were doing kingdom work. And it was honest, and it was true, because I'd never been around so many people that had the same mission and had the same faith. And that was the best teaching time of my life was there. And I knew at an early age that the example my father set as being able to make a positive impact for Jesus Christ through his coaching, I knew that I could do that too. We don't just go out and evangelize out here, because I know that in this setting there are some restrictions and things you can't have, but at the same time, the way we live our life needs to be the example that there has been many kids throughout mine that can say, Coach, can you tell me why you're so positive? Can you tell me why you do the things you do, and why do you care? And it's a very easy transition to talk about your faith. And that's always our number one thing. We have 4 core principles in our program, and our first one is always character counts. Because it doesn't matter if we're talking about our relationships in marriage, as a father and mother, whether it's our working habits as an employee, as a citizen. If we have character, I had a band director in White Deer, Texas, named Dwight Harden. He retired to Paradise, Texas. He came by my senior year and goes, he's the one that said, hey, it doesn't matter what you do. You could be playing the tuba, you could be playing on Friday night, or we could just be doing anything, but character counts and everything. And that resonated for me the rest of my life. That if we have character, no matter the hard times, the good times, we're going to carry through. And that's really kind of our core foundation, is that, yeah, we have to build on character. And if we do that, we know everything else is going to take care of itself. We know the wins and losses are going to be there. But if we have character, we're trying to provide value to our kids and have them be better people for having been a part of our athletic.
That was another question I had, is do you teach, like, my question says attitude or technique, but it sounds like you've already answered that. Do you have like a pre-meeting before the season where you bring kids in and set the foundation?
We do. We want to set the standard. You hear this all the time: culture. Well, how do you develop it? I mean, it's the buzzword, but you really have to say, hey, let's not just talk about it. Let's actually form a foundation for it. But yeah, in our preseason meetings, we talk to the parents. They're going to know that, well, first and foremost, we care about their kids. They're entrusting us with their most valuable possession, and they're entrusting us with their kid. And we're going to take care of that because it's value to us as well. But we are going to set the standard and expectation that we're not really going to delineate from, because if we're going to truly build a championship culture, there's things that just cannot waver. And the character aspect's always there. I was real quick when I interviewed for the Yorktown job, it was just kind of funny. I think one of the reasons I got the job is that they asked me about player conduct, and I said, well, guys, we don't allow our kids to cuss. And all of a sudden I saw 3 board members kind of perk their head up. I said, it's just something we feel like we're getting education. It's a negative connotation, and we just think it's not a good look for us as a program or anything else. Well, I didn't realize that they'd had a problem, that they were embarrassed. The kids out there cussing in the dugout last baseball season. I didn't know anything about that. I was just like, no, it's just not what we're going to do. So it's kind of funny, because when I first come into a place, I say, guys, we're not going to have that. And the kids kind of look at me because they talk a certain way, and it's just like, no, it's just not it. And then everybody's like, that won't fly here. Yes, it will, because we'll set the expectation, and they'll get tired of doing 15 push-ups. So it's just kind of one of those deals. But yeah, we have to set a standard early. Communicate it, because if they don't know the rules of the game, they don't know how to play. So we set that expectation early and tell them exactly how it's going to be, and everybody usually gravitates toward that.
Well, and you also have to role model it, and it sounds like you do. And
you better. Yeah. Otherwise, you have no teeth to it.
Well, right. That's funny you said that, because I think that got me a job one time too, and I'm not going to say where, because it would imply which coach was the other. But it's the same kind of deal. And they even asked me specifically. So I said, our kids aren't going to be cussing. I said, our coaches aren't going to be cussing at our kids or in front of our kids. Yeah. I understand people are going to slip. I said, but that's as a habit. And Coach Neely, who's here with us today, can remember that was just kind of always one of our deals is we're not going to do that. And I think that, like you said, I think it sold the soup at that place immediately on it. And people they think that, like you said, they think it's not going to fly. Well, like kids will do if you hold that bar high. It's like my older brother used to tell me when I first started coaching. He said, good kids will be bad if you let them, and bad kids will be good if you make them.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's pretty simple. And sure enough, you set those expectations, and they know, and they'll do it. Especially when they respect you. And like Coach said there, like Coach Shanafelt said, when you model it, it's a whole lot easier than when you don't model it and then you tell them to.
100%.
he was talking about motivational stuff or kind of the character part of it. And I know UIL's really been pushing the character part of it. Did that make you change anything, or were you doing all of it already?
We're pretty much already there because we kind of already have a character building program. I do applaud THSCA over the last few years. They've really kind of leaned into a lot of the character building stuff. So it gives you some more resources, and it's something you can look at. But if you kind of already have your system of how you want to do it, it's going to tweak it, but it's really not going to change a whole lot if that's already who you are. So we've kind of already had that instilled in us. But I do think it's especially there's a lot of different programs and different ways of doing things. But in some, especially when I was young, I looked at everything I could possibly get my hands on to kind of decide, hey, how are we going to run this when we get into it? Everybody has that hope being the head guy someday. So I think it's a great resource, especially for young coaches to kind of make some decisions on, hey, where do I want to go with this? And I think it is valuable. But I do appreciate the association for really kind of leaning into that with UIL, of course, as their partner.
Well, okay, we're going to kind of branch off into here, and I'm going to ask you some kind of specific questions for a second. Coach Shanafelt had this one. It's a good question. When you're taking your kids and you're playing a team that may be way better than you or maybe not near as good as you, how honest are you with your kids about what's going on? Do you try to convince your kids that you're unbeatable at all times, all the time, or are you more honest with them about, hey, look, we're going to have to play a perfect game this week? You know, how honest are you with your kids when it comes to that stuff?
Well, we've always kind of had the mantra of we respect all but fear none. We always try to build up some confidence. That one of the things my father always taught us, because he took over some programs. When he took over at Claude, they were on a 24-game losing streak. When he took over at White Deer, they were back-to-back 1-9 seasons. When we went over to McCamey, they had not won a gold ball in 15 years. We went to Anson High School. They hadn't been in the playoffs in a decade. So somebody one time asked me, how does your father get these places turned around? It's a leadership conference before my senior year. And the question just came out of nowhere. Well, I didn't realize the guy asking me the question was from Panhandle, Texas, and he didn't understand how White Deer turned around because they were kind of in a bad spot. I hadn't thought about it. I said, well, first thing my father does is he has kids believe that they could do things better than they've ever believed they could do. So he turned those things around pretty quickly, because our first game at Claude, he could have been elected mayor for life because we beat Clarendon 42-14. You look up in the stands and everybody's excited. But every place he turned around, it held true, as that he had a way through the course of the week, because a lot of times, especially the first year, people would be like, you can't beat so-and-so. All of a sudden, we're in the game with them, and we did beat so-and-so. There was a long-time helmet reconditioning guy and a top Rydell salesman, Ron Mayo's father, Sam Mayo. One time he gave Dad a compliment. He goes, Stan, the man, he goes, you are the guy who gets more out of mediocre talent than anybody I've ever seen. Dad goes, well, Sam, thanks for that. It's a high compliment. But Dad would work them hard, and through that hard work, these kids started to believe they could win. So pretty much every week, because we knew the amount we had put into it, we believed we could win every game. There is some honesty to it. I have been honest when we're playing my last year at Yorktown, we're playing Chilton. They're number 3 in the state, and they're darn good. But I said, guys, here's the game plan. This is what we're going to do to win this game. And I said, we're going to let that play clock go down to 2. We're going to snap the ball, but we're going to have a lead going into halftime. And then the second half, we're going to finish this thing off. We're up 14-7. Their folks don't know what's going on. And my kids just go into the locker room like, it's exactly what he told us we're going to do. So I kind of look at it as, we're going to talk a little bit about scheme, but it doesn't matter who I'm playing. They're going to know that Coach Caffey believes we're going to win this game. And I'm not always successful, because they're the ones that got to get out there and write the check that my mouth sometimes writes for them. But we're always there. We always try to talk about that it doesn't matter who we're playing. The next game is the most important game of the season, because it's the next one. You don't know what's going to happen. This could be your last opportunity to play. You never know when this thing's going to be over with. So we try to make sure that our effort level, even if we're against an opponent that may not be quite as good as us. And there are times when you can't lie to your kids and say, hey, those guys are going to come out here and they're like, Coach, we know we're going to win by 40. Well, you still have to get better. You still have to try to do your job to the highest abilities. So that's where we try to make sure they understand this is an important game too, and we have to get after it. So it is a dichotomy that's very tough to overcome, but especially when you're stepping into kind of a rebuilder, I always feel like if our second core value has always been work wins, that if we've worked hard enough, we believe that we can, then there's always an opportunity for us to win.
Okay, so you said that's one of your second. What's your first core value?
Character counts was first.
Okay, character
and then
counts.
Work wins was our second, because we go through off season, we hit our weight room just like you guys have always preached. I've seen it with Coach Brown at Schulenburg. Those kids were well put together. You knew they put the time in. And it's the same thing. My father always used to say, weight room is the biggest confidence builder of any athlete. And all of a sudden, kids that can't win, when they were at Claude, they were 24 games straight. Some kids had never won. There were some kids that were seniors that won one game their freshman year. But all I know is that when he went in there and those kids started hitting that weight room the way that they hit it, within 2 years, they're the number 12 team in the state, because they just believed that, hey, physically I can do this now. And that's kind of one of those deals. But every offseason we've ever done, we've instilled that confidence that, hey, we're working towards something and we're working together, because it has to be oneness of spirit. And those kids that when you get an upset, everybody on that team believed they could go out there and have a shot at winning that night. So that's kind of what we always build in the offseason as well.
Well, tell me this, because this will lead into something that we ask later in our little Ask the Coach section. But since you brought it up, I want to go ahead and ask it. You said your dad took some jobs in places that hadn't been successful. Mm-hmm. Why? Why did he take them there, and what was it that made him think, I can be different here?
Well, and, he's a confident guy. And honestly, every move we ever made was for the betterment of the family. Dad's ego is low. His output is high. When we went to Claude, he didn't want his kids growing up in a big school setting. And that's why he left Copper's Cove. He wanted the same values for his kids that he grew up in Seminole, Texas. So that took us to the Panhandle. Great move for us. It was a very impactful.
Did he look at those towns, though, and say, oh, they got some good kids coming up? Or was he just saying, I'm confident in my abilities, I can? The
first one was pre-internet. He didn't know they didn't tell him in the interview they were on a 24-game losing streak. They sold that. He just knew that's where he wanted. Now, when we moved up to White Deer, they had great tradition. They had good facilities, great tradition, and Dad knew that, hey, we could probably turn this thing around, because if a community has that state championship DNA, they always can have that again. It's the same thing with Schulenburg, the same places that may have been a while since they've won a state championship, but their community knows how to support a football team. And so my brother graduated from White Deer High, and it was a great opportunity for him. We moved to a little bit bigger school, the next place in McCamey. So moving up classification, of course, he knew that they could be good there. But at the same time, financially, things were better for us as a family, but also they had some talent. The last move we took to Anson, I was fifth generation Caffey to live there. So it was a family move. There's not many Caffeys in this world, but there's a lot of them in the Abilene area. So it was that one was really kind of for family.
So it's always going to be different. What takes you to a different place?
It was for him. Of course, a lot of prayer and consideration goes into it. But, yeah, it was every one of our moves was always to better our family situation. And every one of them worked out.
Another question for you here. What is the toughest time you faced in your coaching career?
Well, that first job, I was a defensive coordinator, giving up 43 points a game, and we didn't sniff a victory. I go into my father's office. I said, Dad, it's not too late for me. I can go back to college. I'm 23 years old. If I'm not supposed to be a coach, just tell me now. He laughed because he had success turning all those programs around. He goes, son, give me 2 years. And he goes, I promise you we will turn this thing around. But that first year, we had some tough times, because we had 5 kids that had played football ever. And we're playing some people that are pretty good. We went out to school in East Texas, and we're talking. It's just me and him, basically. We have a couple other people helping us. Kids are in the locker room. I come out second half. We're down 35-0. I looked at the scoreboard. I threw up on the sideline. I stepped away. Son, golly. But what was funny is we won our first game the second year. Our kids are ecstatic. And I'm like, hey, act like you've done this before. And I realized they've never won a football game in their life. So I said, well, celebrate a little bit here. We commenced losing the next 6. And I'm thinking, well, here we go again. No, we're 1-6. We win our last 3. I actually had an offer to go coach college football, which I said was always a goal of mine. And I turned it down because I said, Coach Mummy, it's just not the right time. I need to be here one more year to finish the job. And he said, you know these opportunities don't come around. I said, yes, sir, I do. But I said, Lord willing, I'll have an opportunity with you again down the road. We stayed one more year, went through a hurricane season. Hurricane Rita hit Houston and Beaumont area. But we made the playoffs for the first time in school history. And the pride, the excitement that those young men felt made all of those struggles worth it. Because now multiple guys got into the profession because of that. We have a guy that's an assistant principal at Sci-Fair. Never would have got into education without the impact that Dad and I had. Head coach at one of the top 40 coaches in under 40, named Corey Washington. He never played football until Dad and I got to Westbury Christian. We made an absolute impact on the educational journey for a lot of folks. When we made that playoff appearance, people just were astounded. But the strength and confidence that was built in those men was amazing. So all the hard times were worth every single one of those moments when we made that playoff set last year.
You know, you mentioned that, and I want to throw in a plug here. If anybody's hadn't seen that movie called The Forge, I just went and watched it yesterday, and it is, or no, maybe the day before yesterday, but it's an amazing movie for men and mentorship. That's really what the whole thing's about. But it is, and the best part about it, my wife was like, you know, when they actually made the men, it's a Christian movie, but she said they made the men out to be masculine, jacked up dudes, not the wimpy little sissy ones, you know, that they like to throw out as being the church guy. But it is a really good mentorship. I would
That's awesome.
strongly advise coaches, especially, to go watch it because it's all about mentoring young men. And, you know, so you're talking about the impact you had on those young men there, and that's immeasurable.
It is.
You know. Okay, this is a good time to take a quick break and hear from our sponsor, Coach Index. All right, I'm going to take a minute to explain what Coach Index actually is for those of you that don't know, which is probably most of you at this point because it's a brand new business. But our sponsor is actually myself. And my older brother, who's a retired school administrator and coach, and my youngest son and I started a website to try and help parents find private coaches, tutors, fine arts instructors. It's basically a one-stop shop for parents looking to help their kids or looking for help for their kids. But before we can really market it to parents, we need to fill up the database with the instructors. All instructors and coaches can register for free with the site, and it'll never cost the instructors anything. It's basically free advertising for instructors. So if you're a tutor, a private coach, or fine arts instructor, or even a college student looking to make money on the side doing private coaching like both my sons did, go to coachindex.net. That's coachindex.net, and you can register for free to start your marketing your services. It's never going to cost the instructors anything. They can go on there and register. They click on what it is that they're interested in coaching or teaching or instructing, whether it's playing the flute or throwing the discus. They can go on there and register for free and become part of the database. And then parents or the students go on to the site and they'll click on what they're looking for and type in their zip code, and it'll show all the ones that are in that area. Now, because everything's brand new, the database doesn't have much in it now, but we're hoping to fill it up soon. So help us spread the word. If you know any private instructors out there that might be interested in registering, then let them know. And that is coachindex.net. Okay, welcome back from the break. So now that we're back, let me move on to the next question. What is your most memorable moment you've had in coaching?
Well, there's a lot of great ones.
Yeah.
There really are. It's hard to pick one that's the best.
Let's pick a few. If you want.
I played football at Sul Ross State University. One of the best experiences of my life.
Who is now Division II, right?
Division II now, but at the time we were Division III. And unfortunately, I won 10 games in 4 years. We had some guys that could play, but we couldn't put everything together. So I got to coach Division III football at Millsaps College. We're the number 3 team in the country. Worked for a guy named Mike Dubose. And my offensive line coach was my college roommate. His name's John Long. He's an O-line coach and strength and conditioning guy at Caddo Mills now. But we went out to Millsaps together, and we were undefeated. And we're about to play our first-round playoff game against LaGrange College out of Georgia. And I just looked at him. He looked at me. He said, "This is what we've been waiting our whole lives for, Hoss." And we went out and we won that game handedly. And to this day, it's just one of the most joyous times because we've been through the struggle together, trying to make it as Division III athletes. And then we won that first playoff game there. That was probably one of the most joyous times. I got to share it with my best friend, but also got to be around some other folks. And on that staff, we stink. We had our receivers coach is now the running backs coach at Florida State. The defensive backs coach is the co-defense coordinator at Arkansas. Our D-line coach is the defensive line coach at Louisiana Monroe. Incredible staff, incredible people. But that probably is the most memorable game. And then there's one time my father had quadruple bypass surgery. He actually coached 2 games from a hospital bed, called the offense and still won them. But he's in the playoffs at Brentwood Christian. He retired from the public school setting and was coaching private school again. But they had played in the Houston area, and we're playing in our second round against Thrall. And Thrall was favored to beat us. But we had a great come-from-behind victory, and we had a kid. All of a sudden, we're just trying to run the clock out, and we got in the wishbone and handed off counter ISO. And he takes it 65 yards and takes the lead late in the fourth quarter. But there's a picture in the newspaper. My father got to make the second half of that game, and he's getting to hug me, but he can't really hug me real tight because he's coming off that quadruple bypass. I said, "Son, don't hug me too hard here." I said, "I won't, Dad." But winning that game in front of him,
big one.
Yeah, it was. It's huge.
Anything you get to do like that that's special with your dad, it's got to be awesome. Okay, what the new UIL rules this year? You know, we won't talk about the WBGT stuff and all that.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the video one?
It is all trickle-down effect. I mean, I'm kind of surprised it's taking this long. When the NFL got to start having tablets on the sideline instead of still photos, I knew that college would eventually, and I knew it would get down here. For schools like me, we don't have extra personnel to do technology, so it's not really going to be impactful for us. But I can see where the big schools that can. That guy that was at Millsaps, he used to joke and say it's only for people who can't see the game.
For me, that's what I was telling Shanafelt on the way up here. I said, "Man, I would have been awesome if I could have had that in the box with me."
Yeah. So he used to joke that he could see all 22. I said, "Coach Dubose, I don't know if you can see all 22." He goes, "I swear to goodness, Coach, I can." But for me, I couldn't as a young coach. So I think I think it can be positive for you. I also think it could get some people, though, that they're going to be looking too much at it and get a little paralysis by analysis, and could actually hinder some coaches that you only have 20-something minutes at halftime. So you better have your stuff ready to go if you're trying to show people.
Now, to clarify then, what they can do is they can watch in the box. They can be going through film the whole time.
Yep.
But on the sideline, nothing.
Can on the sideline, but you can take it in at halftime, too.
Okay, because I think my son at Salado said he's actually using the film in the press box is what he's doing. That's part of his job over there.
Yep, and you can see exactly where they are and what they're doing. But
yeah, then you just got to
still got to have some players, so. So we'll see.
Well, Coach, it seems I didn't know you before, and I really enjoyed this. And it sounds like a lot of it's from your family, your father, and over the course of the years. Do you think you can build leaders, or do they have to be born leaders? And has it changed? Your opinion changed over those 21 years?
I think some kids have some innate leadership qualities that are born with, but I do believe that anybody can develop. You can't ever have a team full of all leaders. We all know that, but we all can have some people that have that leadership quality in their life, the character that makes them have something, a little bit of grit about them. Not everybody's going to be a vocal leader. Not everybody's going to be a rah-rah guy. What we try to build in our program, always joke, my middle son, I always wanted to name one of my sons Barnabas, because in the Bible it means son of encouragement. So my middle son is Landon Barnabas, and he is true to his name. He is an encourager. His older brother steps up. He's like, "You got this, Luke. You can do this." So we always kind of, anybody that's kind of jumping down on a teammate, we just say, "Hey, be a Barnabas." So not everybody's going to be that leader that you want, but I think that you can develop it through how not only how the coach models himself, but through we sit down and take some time and talk about some of the character traits and leadership qualities that we want to have. Most of that's in the off-season time, but I think you can develop it. But also, we can't minimize the impact that you have from the house. Because deep down, we're around them more than their parents, but they've also got huge impact as well. So there are some that are going to have that from the home as well. And those, you love that opportunity when everything comes together and you're working in conjunction with the house and the program, then things really can take off for you. But I do believe you can develop leadership.
To kind of follow up on that, we were talking about this on the drive up. Do you think that telling kids over and over, and I think I know the answer, what you're going to say about, like, when I coached baseball, I told them, we're going to be the hardest working 2A baseball team in the state of Texas. And I think they picked up on it and they leaned on it. Do you do things like that, or do you see things like that?
We always talk about it. We always, especially because for us, one thing that we never feel like gets enough respect is in all of our society is servant leadership, is the idea of guys like offensive linemen. They never get the credit they want. So we talk constantly with our big guys that everything success that we're going to have as a team is built with the offensive and defensive line. Some people kind of look at me because I talk about it incessant because it's true. But people don't want to just be an offensive lineman. They don't want to just do those kind of things. But what's kind of funny is I've got a seventh grade now. There's 7 of them that, no, Coach, I don't want to touch the ball. I'm a lineman, because we've talked about it all of the time.
We used to strongly encourage all those aspects with our linemen, and we would have our pancake breakfast.
Yeah.
No kind of stuff. I mean, because to do things just to develop that camaraderie with that group about the importance of them, and hey, we're a big deal.
You gotta watch it, because it kind of turns into La Costa Nostra or whatever they call that, because it's a thing of their own. You know, those guys, they go to the offensive line coach's house and they have dinner once a week. Well,
we did the same.
They only have that. All the skilled kids are jealous of it. And it's just like the Hogs of the 80s Washington Redskins offensive line. You have to be invited. So the running back keeps trying to go over there, and the offensive lineman said, nope, you don't get to until you at least 3 knockdown blocks. But they'll let the quarterback come, because we get in the wishbone and we'll run off tackle power sweep, and there's the quarterback leading up. And so he gets invited to the lineman dinner because he's over there blocking. But yeah, we try to make sure that some of the kids that sometimes don't feel like they are the big part, we want to make sure that everybody's important in our program.
Well, because even you and I could run the football behind a good O-line. You know, a great running back can't run behind a sorry O-line.
You're 100% right.
Anybody can run behind a really good O-line.
You're not kidding.
Even Coach Neely over here can run behind it. Well, okay, so we're going to move on to a section here, calling it kind of Ask the Coach.
Yeah. Before
we do our rapid fire stuff. And this question came in from a guy, and I know the guy, used to be on a school board, and it's in a town they had a good coach, had a good program for a while, and then that coach left, and the program has kind of trickled downhill, and now they've had this endless cycle of coaches. As a coach going in, what are people going to look at? If they're trying to interview people, what are people going to be looking at to see, can I make a change here? Can I turn it around? Is it all about the talent at the lower levels, or is the turnover rate going to scare them? Is it about the money? Will that draw a better coach? What do you think on that?
Well, it has to be kind of a marriage of a lot of things to be successful. We've all seen the programs that have longstanding consistency are the ones that kind of have the success, whether it be Randy Allen at Highland Park. You look at Denny Faith at Albany. That guy's been there since I was in high school, so that tells you how long he's been there. Jason Herring down at Refugio. The guys people like Shiner have had 3 coaches in 40-something years. So it's important to be able to get the right person that has a vision and be able to support and stay behind them. I feel like if you're a non-blue blood program, how do they become blue bloods? Well, they have to have some consistency, but they also have to have buy-in from top to bottom. This has to be from community to administration, especially with superintendent, principals, athletic directors being aligned in the same ideas, same vision and format and how they want to go about this, all the way down to the teachers, players, all the way to custodial staff. It's amazing what you could do if everybody's together in spirit. But you have to be willing to stay with it, because if you're not going to have consistency, the constant turnover is going to lead you. We'll be moving in one direction for a while, and then that coach leaves, and then all of a sudden we're starting over. Some things fell through the cracks. We have to come and fix things first. Then we get our vision going with the new AD. He gets fed up because parents think that it should be winning more. He leaves. All of a sudden some other cracks happen, and then all of a sudden the next guy comes in. He's got to fix things, then gets to implement his vision, and it's just a constant cycle. So we have to find, in my opinion, you have to have some people that just want to make a stand and say, hey, let's find somebody, let's get behind their vision and stay with them for a while. They'll bring in people. And the idea of, hey, let's not fix what's not broken. I feel like sometimes people just want to hey, let's open this thing up and see who else we can get. Well, you've got some people that have shown great loyalty to the town, the community, and the kids. Sometimes let's look at them first and then open this thing up. But how do you attract them? It's always worrisome if you have a new coach every 2 years. So, yes, your applicant pool probably would go down. If you have constant administration turnover, that's always a concern, because you want to have somebody that's going to be in there with you. We always used to say if some things are happening, we want to be able to circle the wagons together and make sure we're firing out, not firing in. So we need to have that supportive administration as well. And it is about community a little bit too. I've never believed in just talent chasing, but if some folks are looking for a new job, it sure helps that if they've won some games at the junior high level, so that you can see some hope. But I'll tell you, my father took over at Spring Lake Earth, the first team that went to the regional semifinals. That junior high team scored 7 points in their 2 years in junior high. So it can't just be, hey, were these kids good in junior high? Because when I interviewed for this job, I asked that question, hey, how did our sub-varsities do? And then the room got real quiet. Well, our JV was really good. And then they tried to talk around it. Well, come to find out, the 8th grade had won one game. Well, last year we didn't lose a JV football game in district. I said, guys, just keep working. So I don't always buy into they don't have talent there. I believe talent can be developed.
Well, and what a lot of people, for people out there that don't know, you'll see that those are two extremes of the coaches. You'll see one like Coach Caffey was talking about his dad that are going to go someplace and they're not worried about wins and losses. That doesn't even factor into it. I can tell you right now, I didn't. When I was going to the places and interviewed for head coaching jobs, they really didn't care. I was more like, okay, if this is where we're supposed to be, God's going to put us there and everything will be good. But the other one is, and y'all seen it, every one of y'all in here has seen it, the talent chasers. I mean, the problem is if a school out there is hiring someone that is looking at, oh, okay, that 8th grade group or that 9th grade group is really good coming up, then you're pretty much guaranteed as soon as that group's gone, they're gone too.
They're gone.
And they're going to go find the next place with the good 8th grade group or 9th grade group. And you were calling them talent chasers a minute ago, and that's the other extreme philosophy of it,
Well, and that's where you kind of get into, are we developing for the right reasons?
Right.
And or are we just kind of whatever it takes to win? And then you get the people that say, well, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, and all those kind of folks. And just, that's not what I believe high school athletics should be.
Coach, what do you do if you're in a situation or a job where you're not all aligned with like you were talking about earlier, with the coaches, the administration, the town, the community? Is it time to go?
No, there's some places that I also got a chuckle when I was interviewing at Yorktown, because they said, hey, Coach, where do you see yourself in 5 years? One of the silliest questions I've ever been asked in my life. Well, I mean, what are you going to say? Well, I hope to make this job into something and then make a big move.
Hey, I used to ask that question at every interview. You're telling me what?
Well, I don't think anybody.
That was for assistant coaches.
Yeah,
so
that's
I
a
was
little bit
asking.
different, and that's okay to have ambition and want to move up from. I want to be a coordinator. I want to be a head coach. That's my job to help you be a head coach. But as an AD head coach, I wanted to build a program. But I said I understand that there's some places that Spike Dykes said that you make 10% of the people mad every year you're there. So after 5 years, you got to leave. Well, I don't know. I don't agree. But that made everybody chuckle in the room. And I was like, uh-oh, so in 5 years I might need to be looking. I got to stay 7, so it was pretty awesome. But no, it does make it tough. I've been in a situation where I had 6 superintendents in 7 years. So it is tough because you share their vision. They have a vision for that school district. I know I'm a piece of the overall educational machine, but I'm an important piece of making kids want to be successful. But I'm going to share their vision. I'm going to align my goals to them because I'm loyal to the brand. I'm going to ride for the brand, whatever they say. This is the vision they have. I'm going to help carry that out through the athletic department and our goals and our vision. But when there's constant turnover there, it is tough because you just, man. But for me, I believe that, as y'all have said also, God had me there for a reason. I stayed as long as I could to make a positive impact. And it's just, you've got to make sure that you're doing your part to help share in the vision, and then you can share your vision back with them, but they need to see that you're loyal to what they're trying to get done, and that's how you build on it together.
All right. So, hey, we're going to enter the rapid fire question section, okay?
All right.
All right. So here we go. We'll ask you these, and we won't veer off too much of them. First question, favorite pass route?
Wycross.
You're the second one to say that.
It's the best because it is the best.
that's what Fredericksburg said. That's what Coach Wilder over there.
As the air raid has become more and more popular, and if you ever work for Hal Mummy, you're going to fall in love with Wycross too. But every quarterback that you'll ask in the air raid offense pretty much will say Wycross.
Is that the one with the dig on the backside?
So we changed it to a post curl read. That way, if the safety jumps down on that Wycross, we'll just keep on posting. Hopefully, we'll hit that. But if they stay deep, they can't cover the backside curl.
I got you. Okay, favorite run play?
Option. My dad was a wishbone guy before he was on Hal Mummy's staff, so
couldn't get away from it.
I love the option. You don't have to be great on the offensive line because you don't have to block 2 of the guys. So I like running inside beer.
Oh yeah, I love inside beer. Multi-sport or single sport guy?
I always believe that we want our kids to compete. One of the things we say all the time is competition's everything, and everything should be a competition. So we like our kids to compete year round. I don't really see a benefit to specialization because if you have a desire to play, I want you to play it. The highest level of burnout for us are single sport athletes that play year round, and then they lose the passion for it. And once they lose the passion for it, you're not going to get them back. So we, especially in junior high and all the way through the freshman year, if they want to play 3 sports, 4 sports, we encourage it. It usually pairs down after that. The freshman basketball player that's 5'6" and 200 pounds realizes, I might not ever make it up to the varsity basketball team, but we sure want him to explore that desire if he wants to.
Deal. Hair policy.
We go with whatever the district's policy is. The school allows it. We make sure that it's clean cut. Personally, I don't want anything over touching the collar or the ears, but some fights you're just not going to win anymore with the way the laws are written.
Gotcha. Heads or tails on coin flip?
Depends on the size of the coin. The bigger the coin, heads. Heads is heavier. This is proven. The heavier, if it's a 50-cent piece and it's the old eagle, the eagle's heavier, so that side's going to pop up. So there you go. Now, I don't lose.
Gosh. All right, that's new. I learned something today.
There you go.
Or I learned a lot today. Offense or defense?
I'm an offensive guy. We're going on offense first.
Always want the ball.
Yeah, I'm taking the ball.
Pre-game speech?
Not much rah-rah. If I don't have you prepared in the week of practice, my last 5 minutes of getting you fired up isn't going to get there. I will say some things to make sure last week we wanted to be physical in the run game. We told about Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard. And I said, let's make sure we make them say no mas today. But we had talked about that through the week, but that team we played last week was very tough, so they stayed with it all the way through the second half. So we had to make sure we had the mentality of keep punching.
Had a pretty good quarterback, didn't he?
That kid's a stud.
Yeah.
That kid.
Italy gets some athletes over
Yeah.
there, don't they?
Hey, and Coach Lovelace does a fantastic job coaching them. You think you're going to just be able to run them over, and those guys just come at you like a bunch of bandits coming after you.
All right. Favorite, or do you have a motto for this year?
Ride for the brand. That's kind of our third core value. It's about the loyalty that you have to yourself, to your team, to your community. We have that bar, SR bar here, kind of like I did at Sol Ross, and we ride for that brand.
Okay. What's your favorite quote?
So as my father used to always say, you got to believe, if you can believe, you can achieve. And I believe that's true in most everything that you do.
Do you play music in the weight room?
Nope, not a whole lot. We do every once in a while I want to make sure I can teach and be heard. Our music's on, but it's not very loud. In the summer, we let them that's a lot more lax, but I have some kids, I got to make sure that our safety's first, especially we do a lot of Olympic type lifts and make sure we coach up the cleans and all that other stuff good.
Okay. Varsity player in the band, do you let him march at halftime?
Non-district. But when it comes
okay.
district, those kind of are our opportunities to advance. So we make sure that we have the abilities to put our best foot forward. But in non-district, of course, I mean, they're preparing for their competitions as well, but usually ask them to be in there so that we have a chance to advance to the playoffs.
Okay. 2 platoon,
as much as we can. There's been years where we just don't have enough kids, but we sure want to, because a kid who may not be as talented at 100% probably can beat a kid out that is more talented at 75% of energy. So we try to do that.
Okay. Favorite pregame song?
Had a running back at Sol Ross that played Phil Collins in the Air tonight about 3 times before we played Hardin Simmons. And I had 2 fumble recoveries and about 10 tackles. So I was like, I'm keeping this song for the rest of my life.
That is the number one. Came out, I think, the other day. That is the number one pregame football song.
I don't know why.
Ever.
Just is.
That's funny. Okay, now I'm going to ask you one more question just because this was on my list that somebody told me to ask. Did you watch the A&M game the other day?
Against Notre Dame?
Mm-hmm.
Spots of it, not the whole thing.
Is their problem, this was the question, is their problem a quarterback problem or a coach problem?
Their quarterback had a rough night, but he's had a lot of good nights too. So I'm going to have to say it was a Notre Dame defense problem. I think Notre Dame's defense is probably one of the best.
They got good pressure on him all night.
Well, and I think their secondary does not give a lot of airspace. I think A&M, I've never been a big A&M fan, but I will say this. I think that there's going to be a lot more brighter days ahead with that kid. I think he's had some good nights. He had that injury last year. He still just doesn't have a lot of reps. And for me, being an air raid kind of guy, it's about the reps. And I think as the season goes, I think he's going to have a very good season.
Okay. Well, hey, Coach, I think that's about all the time we have for today.
Is there anything you'd like to add here about your new home here with the Scurry Rosser Wildcats?
It's a good place to be. I got good coaches. That's the other thing is that I want to make sure I get across is that any success we've ever had is because of the assistants that we've had. And I've got some great ones here. So I've been fortunate and blessed. Everywhere I've been as a head coach, can't say enough about those guys' contribution of what we've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, can't do it alone, can you?
No.
I really appreciate you taking the time to visit. I love just sitting down and being able to talk football and talk about the personal things of what football means to you and kind of your town, your family stuff. That's good stuff. So we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today and wish you the best of luck this season.
Glad to get to see you guys.
Okay, we want to thank all of you for joining us here today with Coach John David Caffey at Scurry Rosser High School. Hope you enjoyed gaining a little insight into Texas high school football from his point of view. I hope you can join us next week for a trip to Refugio, where we'll be visiting with Jason Herring, the current athletic director and former head coach of 17 years for the Bobcats. Thanks again for joining us. Special thanks again to Kaylin Moore and Matt Brown of Heart Starts Pounding podcast for helping me navigate my way through the podcast publishing. Also to Coach Shanafelt for the help today, and to Granger Smith again for letting us use his song, Reppin' My Roots, which we play at the opening and the closing.